You're listening to the Your Voice Network. We have Andy Meehan running in Pennsylvania 1 coming up. He is a musician, he's also an investment advisor, and he proudly supports our president. He's been a resident of the district that he's seeking to represent for over 30 years. Andy, welcome to Campaign Corner.
Hi, Sherry. Good to see you again. Thanks for having me back.
Good to see you too. Now, you have a primary coming up on April 28th, and you are running against an incumbent. Normally, we don't oppose our incumbents, but this one may as well be a Democrat, Brian Fitzpatrick. He voted against President Trump with border security, with taxes, with Obamacare, basically in line with the Democrats. So we're glad that you're running, and we hope that you can win the primary to get him out. But today we want to focus on all the positive and great things that you have to say about your own campaign. So we want to start first with your take on the Second Amendment. Recently, we had that attack in Texas Church, and you talk about the right that citizens have to defend themselves. So tell us your position on the Second Amendment.
Thanks, Sherry. I'm a big supporter of our Second Amendment rights, as I am all of our constitutional rights. The Second Amendment is very important because this is how the citizens of America can be guaranteed that they can preserve their liberty. And there's a reason why it is the Second Amendment right after the First Amendment. What we see going on in Virginia right now is a travesty where they're trying to strip Virginians, law-abiding citizens, of their gun rights. It's an abuse of the government, and I'm glad to see them fighting back. And it's odd now that they're creating their own sanctuaries in their own state and turning this sanctuary policies that we've seen being used against us for us this time around. I oppose these red flag laws that deprive people of due process. I advocate for a concealed carry reciprocity act so that we can drive across the river to New Jersey and not be arrested. And we're, legal concealed carry permit holders should not have to worry about that in the United States of America.
Well, I'm sure that your constituents appreciate your strong stand on this issue. Also, on the right to life, the federal government should not fund clinics that perform abortions. Tell us more about your thoughts on right to life.
Yes, there's nothing in the U.S. Constitution that gives the federal government the right to say or do anything about abortion. It is a classic states' rights issue. The Supreme Court of the United States jumped the guardrails with Roe v. Wade. Just in the last week, Senator Pat Toomey from Pennsylvania and all of the other Republicans from Pennsylvania came down in support of a review of Roe v. Wade by the Supreme Court of the United States. Guess who the lone holdout was that would not support Roe v. Wade? Take a wild guess, Ferry.
Gee, let me see. Is it Pennsylvania 1's Brian Fitzpatrick?
Ding, 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 ding. You got it. Once again, he goes against Republicans. He's not a Republican, and he shows it with his votes against the president and against our values constantly.
Yes, absolutely. Tell us about term limits. You signed something about term limits. You think a constitutional amendment should be passed to limit terms in Congress. Tell us about that.
I do. I think part of the problems that we have in Washington are because people go down there and make a career out of being an elected official instead of serving the people. They're serving themselves. So I do think a constitutional amendment to limit terms and also regarding our budget would be great. But I don't expect the congressional people to vote to limit their own power. So we'll see if this other way of doing it, a convention of states, has any chance of happening. I support any means necessary to legally amend the Constitution for term limits and a balanced budget.
Sure. It's tough because not every politician who has been in office a long time is necessarily bad and not doing a good job. But I think that the term limit, knowing that you have a limited time, would perhaps encourage them to work harder, faster, and better. And perhaps it would help with the temptation to, be bought. What do you think about that?
Yeah, absolutely. And I did sign a pledge for a 3-term limit. So I'm an advocate of 3 terms for the House and 2 in the Senate.
Okay. Now, you've also taken a taxpayer protection pledge in the area of taxes. Let's talk about that.
Yes, I did make a pledge to not raise any more taxes. My counterpart, who is masquerading as a Republican, has called out for carbon taxes to combat climate change. And I am not for these. I think it is absolutely ridiculous that we would sign on to a regime of carbon taxes. My opponent is for them, and I am against them, and I will stand up against these carbon taxes.
How is the economy going in your district in Pennsylvania? We know overall as a nation, things are really, really great, but specifically in Pennsylvania District 1, how are things going there?
Well, as a registered investment advisor and financial advisor who people trust to manage their money, keep their estates right, do their insurance, all the things that I do for people, I have access to how people feel about this, how they budget, how they make money, how they earn a living. And I can tell you that to the man and woman in my client base, everybody is making more money, is wealthier, and is happier with what's going on in their business, with very few exceptions. And the only ones that are unhappy are people that have to import wine, and they are whining because there's going to be a tariff coming down on that because the president wants to, I think, correct some bad deals in the past. I don't think he's really a tariff guy. It's kind of transactional. So I encourage them to wait it out and be patient if they're one of the ones that are negatively affected by this. But by and large, on the whole, the economy is really rocking around here. People are working, and it's all good.
That is so wonderful to hear. I'm so glad to hear that. Let's talk about how people can support you. Obviously, donations and volunteering locally, but we can support you online. And just tell us, what is it like running as a person who's never run for office? You don't have the name recognition. You don't have the deep pockets. So tell us what it's like to be a congressional candidate and yet really want to get in there to serve the people and to serve the nation and support our president.
Yeah, well, I'm obviously an underdog. I'm going up against a very well-financed incumbent who has $1.5 million in the bank that he's raised from special interests and lobbyists from out of the district. I've actually collected money from more people in the district than he has. I'm not somebody who's been comfortable asking people for money for my campaign. I'm usually comfortable telling them how good I'm going to manage their money for them. So I'm getting better at it, and we are making traction with some fundraisers that we're having. And I'm just going to keep on plugging away, Sherry, and do everything I can to make sure that the abandoned and silenced voters in our district who have been ignored, the base of our party, the Trump-supporting conservative base, who has been completely cast aside by Congressman Fitzpatrick. And we are done with Congressman Fitzpatrick. And we're all going to stick together because what I stand up for are the shared values that we all know and espouse, and our president. And everybody knows that I support the president, and he does not.
Well, I think that you have a great chance to win the primary. I know it's not easy, but we're going to be following your campaign and continuing to support you. And thank you again, Andy, so much for coming on the Campaign Corner today.
Yeah, Sherry, just before I go, people can go to my website, meehan2020.com, and donate some money to the campaign. Anything you can send us would be very helpful at this point in time. It's crunch time season for fundraising. So meehan2020.com. Thanks, Sherry.
Thank you. Everyone, we'll be right back with more. Stay tuned.
Hi, this is Andy Meehan. And in case you haven't heard, I am doing something extremely difficult, but absolutely necessary. I'm a conservative challenging Congressman Brian Fitzpatrick in the Republican primary. On the issues, the congressman and I are worlds apart. Fitzpatrick voted in favor of amnesty for illegal aliens and against securing the border, while I'll oppose any amnesty and make sure the wall is funded. He supports gun bans and unconstitutional red flag laws, while I stand with our gun owners, our Second Amendment rights, and our right to due process. He voted to give a legal right to biological men to access women-only spaces and to compete against them for college athletic scholarships. I believe that women deserve women-only safe spaces in our society and fair competition in sports. He's voted for carbon taxes and the Paris Climate Accords, while I've put in writing my pledge of no new taxes. And Fitzpatrick has consistently supported endless wars in the Middle East. I'll vote to bring our troops home. Some establishment leaders in the Republican Party believe that you are obligated to endorse Congressman Fitzpatrick out of party loyalty. However, he isn't worthy of that loyalty as he has not demonstrated it himself. He voted against President Trump in 2016. He has not committed to supporting the president in 2020, and he voted with Nancy Pelosi to label the president a racist just this past July. He does not stand up for the president or our Republican values. I, on the other hand, as the nominee, will do both. But I need your help. Please go to Meehan2020.com/contribute to help me raise the money to win this race. And please also hit the share button to share it with your friends and family so they can see how important this is and they can support me too. This is Andy Meehan, and I approve this message.